Hey guys, Sean Media just want to do a big shout out to Rugby League Culture Lounge. All the best this year, 2020.
Alright, oh yeah! Fuck! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the YouTube channel. My name is Nick from Australia. Welcome to the 2023 NRL mid-season review. We are at the halfway mark of the NRL season. Round 15 is upon us this weekend. And I thought, you know what? We just finished round 14. We're going into round 15. We've got 27 rounds this season. We are pretty much at the halfway mark now. It's the first week of June, so it's time for the mid-season review. But before I get into it, I want to say hello to the live chat. We got Gary Jones, we got Jason Reeder, we got Tom Tento, SS Storm fan, Luke Melbourne Storm fan, William Pearson, Will, CJ Moxley, Devils_Psy, Zenpai, CR Sports, Viking King, Nighthawk Gaming. Hello, everyone that's tuning in. Hope you're all doing well on this very cold Monday night. It is 9:14 p.m. and I hope you guys are all doing well. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel. It doesn't cost anything. Press the subscribe button, and I guarantee you will not be disappointed. Like the live stream. I see we've got about 16 people in the live chat. Guys, like the stream. Press the thumbs up button. I'd really appreciate it. Now, I might be a bit slow tonight. I am just getting over the flu. I had a horrible fucking flu Saturday night and Sunday morning. But I'm feeling a bit better today, but my voice still isn't all there. But it's slowly improving. So let's get into the mid-season review. So what you will see in the live stream tonight, you will see me give an updated version of my ladder prediction. Obviously, it is the halfway mark of the NRL season, so I've done an updated version of what I think the ladder will look like at the end of round 27. Now, I may get called biased for this, but I do not care. I believe my team, the Cowboys, will be there in the finals. I believe we will get our shit together. We're only one game from the top 8 now. So for those of you, before everyone starts to attack and go, oh, blah, 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 whatever about my team, obviously I'm going to back my team in to make the top 8. And obviously I believe we can still get there. So I will have my boys in the 8. So before everyone gets all upset, you know, I don't think it's over yet for us. I think we're still a chance. So keep that in mind. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly go over each team's season so far and give my thoughts on how they're going. And we're going to start with the bottom part of the ladder, and we're going to head on up to the ladder. So mid-season review of the Dragons. They're currently last on the ladder. They're in 17th position. They are 3 wins and 10 losses. And the Dragons, well, they're having a terrible season. Obviously, they've lost their coach, Anthony Griffin. Their young players just aren't – they just can't win close games, the Dragons. They've lost several close games this year. They've lost there's games this year where they should have beat the Tigers at Magic Round. They should have beat the Bulldogs. They lost them. Should have beat the Gold Coast. So many games. Anzac Day, they should have beat the Roosters, blew that. They nearly beat Canberra. They've just had a horrible year, the Dragons, let's be honest here. And, you know, do I still think the Dragons can play finals? No. I think they're gone. I think they're one of the teams that are probably done for the season. I think that game last night probably puts a red pen through them. I mean, 3-10. They're on 8 competition points. They're 8 points behind 8th. It's going to have to be a Jared Hayne 2009 story from Ben Hunt for them to be any chance to make the top 8, but I think they're gone, the Dragons. And I don't like writing teams off at the midway mark. I really don't. But let's face facts. The Dragons, they haven't got a coach. They've got an interim coach. The club's a mess. The sponsors walking out on them. They've got players all over the place, left, right, and centre. I think they're done for. So the Dragons, horrible mid-season. I'm giving them probably a 2 out of 10. They've been horrible to start the year. Now, let's go to the West Tigers. They're currently in 16th position. They are 3 wins and 9 losses. They're on 10 points. Obviously, the Tigers have had a pretty shit start to the year as well. They've had a couple of nice wins. They destroyed my beloved Cowboys a couple of weeks ago. They did beat the Dragons at Magic Round, and they did beat Penrith at Bathurst in the wet. So they've had their moments, but again, they've been really poor. Their off-season recruits haven't been the greatest. They did buy a lot of players, obviously. Happy Coruscant's gone there. John Bateman, Clemmer. They have gone shopping a little bit, the Tigers, but, you know, they always seem to give it a crack. They don't throw the towel in, the Tigers. They really don't, but they haven't got the class and the quality of the teams above them. That's why they are where they are. They need to get a better bloody spine. I think they can really build around the young kid. Coruscant's a gun. Dewey's injured again, which is not good. Brooks is so hit and miss. And the four pack goes hard, but it's just the other things, the fundamentals of the game. And the Tigers, they just don't have it. So it's going to be a few more years probably until the Tigers get their shit together and, they may be a finals team. But again, a bit like the Dragons, I'm putting a pen through the Tigers. They're gone. They won't be playing finals, and I don't think the Tigers will even avoid bottom 4. I think they'll finish. I reckon they'll finish where they are, maybe 16th. I can't see them. The highest I see them getting is maybe 13th. I don't know, but been a tough start for the Tigers, so probably give them a 3 out of 10 to start the year. Now, on to the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs, currently in 15th position. They are 5 wins and 8 losses. Now, I kind of feel sorry for the Bulldogs a little bit because every year we talk about the Bulldogs maybe making the top 8, and it just doesn't happen because whether it's an injury, whether it's a player that doesn't work out for whatever reason, or it's a coaching thing, every year we always say Dogs will finish 7th and 8th. It just doesn't happen for whatever reason. Now, they've had a lot of injuries. I think they had about 14 injuries at one point. Obviously, the big one, William and Kikau, not being available. It's definitely affected the Bulldogs. They have been pretty unlucky, and I'm not going to write them off. I think they can still manage. I think there's still a chance for the top 8. I think there's still a chance for 8th spot, but they've got to start winning soon because this top 8 is going to shorten. Teams are going to be fighting for it, and there's going to be a few teams that are going to start to fall away. As long, you have a look at it right now, you've got a big fucking jam between the Bulldogs and probably the Canberra Raiders. So I'd say between 6th and 15th, it's still anyone's game for that top 8, but the Bulldogs are going to win soon. They've got Parramatta this weekend. They lose that, I would probably write them off because it's just so hard. You got to start winning. So we'll see how they go. But I think Cameron Ciraldo's had a really tough start to the season. It's not his fault. They have had a few change of halves. Obviously, Flanagan has been dropped as the halfback. Burton's now number 7. They did have Reynolds at 6 for a little while. Now they've got the young kid Olawapu in there, and look, they've been competitive. They've had some good wins. They did beat the Cowboys earlier in the year in Golden Point. They did beat Melbourne in Melbourne. They have had some good wins. They're very unlucky against the Roosters yesterday. They were competitive with teams like the Sharks, competitive with the Warriors twice. So, you know, the Dogs have had their moments, but, you know, I think this week's, I mean, if I lose if I lose to Parra this week, it's going to be tough. But we'll see what happens. I don't know. But anyway, I would probably give the Bulldogs probably a 3 out of 10 to start the year. Not because they've been bad, just the injuries have affected them, and it's hard to rate the Bulldogs when they've had 12 to 14 injuries majority of the years. So I'll give the Dogs a 3 out of 10, but keep in mind, majority of them have been bad injuries. But they just got to turn the Bulldogs. If they want to play finals, they got to start winning, and they got to start winning now. Now on to my team, the Cowboys. Now it's no secret the Cowboys have been fairly disappointing. They were expected to finish top 4, top 6 at the start of the season. Things haven't gone the Cowboys' way. Now, the Cowboys, they are somehow alive. I thought our record was worse than what it was. Going into the Melbourne game, I was looking at our record and I'm going, we're 5-8. And then we obviously bashed the hell out of Melbourne yesterday, which is going to give the club a lot of confidence. But Cowboys are currently 6 wins and 8 losses. The Cowboys finally have their first bye this weekend. So the Cowboys, now, a bit like the Bulldogs, have had injuries. But we saw what the Cowboys can do yesterday. They're probably the most full-strength team all year. The only player they had out was Tamalolo, and they beat Melbourne in Townsville 45-20. So it goes to show the Cowboys' depth has been very mediocre, but the Cowboys' full strength is I'll tell you, definitely a problem for the competition. Last year, the Cowboys were third, and they didn't have a lot of injuries, and they were very good. Yesterday, full strength practically destroyed Melbourne up there in Townsville. So if the Cowboys can stay fit and keep most of their team on the paddock, they're going to be a problem for the competition. Now, there's no secret that the Cowboys are going to be better on the road. They haven't won a game this year in Sydney. We lost to the Bulldogs down there in Sydney. We got flogged by the Sharks down there. Who else did we lose to in Sydney? We lost to Parramatta down there. So we're 0-3 in Sydney this year, which ain't good. And we do have a few games in Sydney this year as well. We're going to play Penrith down there. We're going to play Souths down there. We're going to play Manly down there. So we're going to start winning some games on the road, and it's going to be crucial. But you know what? The fact that we're 6 and 8, I'm not that concerned. I think we're about to be one game from 8th position, so that's obviously a good thing. So we'll see how we go. But Cowboys to start the year, definitely a 3 out of 10 compared to what we were last year. So it's been a poor start to the year for the Cowboys. But if there's one team that's outside the top 8 right now that could go on a run and get in that top 8 at full strength, it's definitely the Cowboys, because they've got them origin players, they've got that experience, they've got them that quality of talent. The Cowboys could easily go on a run, so we'll see how they go. But I think to start the year, the Cowboys have been really disappointing. Definitely a 3 out of 10 to start the year. Now let's move on to the Gold Coast Titans. They're currently in 13th. They're 5 wins and 7 losses. Now the Gold Coast have been horrible. Let's be honest here. They've been horrible. They are the biggest chokers in the competition. The Gold Choke Titans is what I like to call them at the moment. Every single week, the Gold Coast, they go out to a lead, whether it's 16-0, whether it's 14-0, or it's 26-0, like I did against the Dolphins. They choke all the time. The Gold Coast second halves are an absolute embarrassment. They have the worst defense in the competition. I can't believe they're sitting in 13th. I think that's a temporary position. They are in all sorts. I think there's a few dramas with Holbrook and inside the club, but we'll soon find out as the year goes on. But, you know, how many games this year have the Gold Coast blown that they should have won? They led 14-0 against Canterbury. They blew that. They led 26-0 against the Dolphins, they blew that. They have stuffed up a lot. They led against the Broncos up at Seabus earlier this year, and they got flogged in that. They led by 12 against South on the weekend and got flogged again. So it's an issue. The Gold Coast are going to address it. And look, I don't think the Gold Coast are one of those sides that are going to be anywhere near the top 8. So, look, I think they're probably going to go backwards. They just can't hold a lead. They can't win games. Their defense is terrible. Their attack's not too bad. They attack fairly well, but their defense has let them down. And I don't know. It's got to be a mental thing with the players. So, I did pick them for the wooden spoon. They have done a little bit better than that. So I'd probably give the Gold Coast probably a 3.5 out of 10 to start the season. But you know what? 3 out of 10. They're not special. They're probably about to fall off. So we'll see what happens. But Gold Coast, 3 out of 10 to start the year. On to Parramatta, who are currently in 12th position. Now, Parramatta, their first 4 or 5 rounds was difficult. They lost a lot of games that they could have won. They lost to Melbourne in a tight one. They lost to Cronulla in a tight one. They lost to Manly in a tight one. Their first 4 or 5 games were difficult. I think they were 1-4 or something. They could have easily been 4-0. Now, we knew Parramatta were going to take a little bit of a hit because of the grand final loss last year, and the players they did lose, obviously losing Reid Marnie hurt them, and losing Isaiah Papali'i and so forth. But I think Parramatta are probably around where I expected them to be at the midway mark. They're 6 wins, 7 losses, 14 competition points. They're 1 game from 8th. They're 2 games from 4th. So they're not going as bad as I thought they would. They're not going as bad. They're probably right where I had them. Now, in my opinion, Parramatta's style of football is not the most exciting. I think it's quite plain and boring. I don't get that excited when I'm watching a Parramatta game. I'm not that entertained by them. Now, obviously, there are some big allegations against Dylan Brown where I think he will be stood down. Obviously, the off-field stuff is a distraction and it could be an issue. But the Parramatta are going to move on from that, and they're going to try and find a way to avoid all that stuff. But look, I think there's still a chance for finals. I'm not going to rule them out for top 8. I think they'll be there. I think they'll be thereabouts. I think their bench, as of late, has actually improved. I think offering Gowie's a good addition. I think Warumi Greg and Makatoa have been good for him. Offer Iggy Ogden as well. So it's going to be intriguing to see how Parramatta go at the back end of the season. But I'd probably give them like a 4 out of 10 to start the year. But it'll be very intriguing to see how they go, if they make the 8 or not. Now, let's move on to Newcastle. Now, Newcastle have been probably better than everyone thought. They're currently 11th, 15 competition points, 5 wins, 1 draw, 6 losses. Now, Newcastle, I think I had them around this spot at the start of the season. Correct me if I'm wrong. If anyone remembers my predictions from the start of the year, I swear I had Newcastle around that, 8th to 12th mark. I could be wrong. I've actually been very... I think Newcastle have been pretty decent. I think they've been okay. Now, I know they can be very hard to watch when they're off their game. Don't get me wrong. They can be a very boring, stale team to watch. But when they're on, they're very entertaining. Kalen Ponga obviously missed a lot of the season, but I think Lachlan Miller has stood up at fullback for most of the year. I think Jackson Hastings is doing a reasonable job. Hastings has been pretty average for me the last 4 or 5 weeks, but I think Newcastle is one of those teams where everyone goes, meh. I don't know if they'll make the 8. You know what? If I'm being honest, I think Newcastle is one of those sides where I'm just waiting for them to fall off. I'm waiting for them to lose games and go down the ladder. I'm not inspired by them. I don't think they'll make the top 8. but they're doing a lot better than everyone thought. A lot of people had them in the bottom 4, bottom 2. Some even said for the wooden spoon, but I don't know. They've been okay, Newcastle, so I will probably give them a 5 out of 10 to start the year. I'll probably give them a pass mark. They're 1 point from 8th, so they've been pretty reasonable to start the year, but for 5 out of 10 for Newcastle. Now, 10th, Manly. They are in 10th position. They are on 15 points. Their record is the same as Newcastle. 5 wins, 1 draw, 6 losses. Yes, they've had injuries. I know Turbo's been out. Schuster's been out for a lot of the season, which definitely hasn't helped them. Look, I think Manly, they're just one of those teams where they're always around this mark, whether, that 6 to 12 mark is probably where Manly will end up. I don't know. Going into Magic Round, I think they were sitting 2nd or 3rd. Manly, they were in the top 4. And then they had a couple of losses and they just fell straight backwards, straight back to reality, which is something that Manly need to work on. I think Anthony Seedball's done a pretty reasonable job so far. It's obviously the big one. Tommy Turbo. Is he fit? Is he not fit? He hasn't looked fit all year, but there's been a few games this year where he's really stood out and had blinders. Obviously, the Canberra game where he had a hat trick. The Melbourne game at Brookie earlier this year had a blinder in that one. And there's been games where I'm watching Tom going, what's he doing? So, look, it's going to be very intriguing to see where Manly do end up. I'm waiting for them to go backwards. I really am. Like, they were top 4. They're now 10th, so I'm expecting them to go down a little bit. But who the hell knows? Cherry Evans has obviously been their best player. I think we all had Manly around this mark anyway. Look, I'll give him a 5 out of 10. I'll give him a pass mark for now, considering the injuries and whatever. But you could give him a lower rating considering they were in the top 4 going into Magic Round, and that was only a month ago. So it's going to be interesting to see how they end up, but I'll give Manly a 5 out of 10. They could easily finish as high as 6, or they could finish as low as 12th, 13th. Who the hell knows? Now, 9th place, the Sydney Roosters. They are 6 wins, 6 losses, 16 points, equaled 8th, but sitting in 9th. The Roosters. What's happened to them? I thought they would be top 4 for sure, the Roosters. They are nowhere near a top 4 team, the Roosters. They are way backwards. They are definitely not what I thought they would be. Again, it's the same as last year. It's a combination thing. It's a combination thing with the Roosters. Sam Walker, Luke Keary, what's the right balance there? Is Sam Walker the future? Is Sandon Smith the one that's going to come in? What is going on? They've got so much quality. I mean, have a look at that forward pack. For fuck's sake. They've got Hargraves. They've got Lodge. They've got the Butcher brothers. They've got Crichton, Tupanua, Radley. They've got that white guy off the bench, Nathan Brown. They've got Satili Tupanua, Angus Crichton. I mean, fuck me. Any team would love to have their forward pack. And then you've got guys like Suoli'i, Joseph Manu, Tupou, Jackson Paulo. It's just, I don't know, man. Roosters fans must be really frustrated with how the season's gone. I'll say this. I'll be surprised if they don't make the 8. I think they will get in the top 8. That's a spoiler for my latter prediction. I think the Roosters will get in the top 8. I'll be very surprised if they don't. They have to. With all that talent, all that quality, all that, sus salary cap that we always talk about, the sombrero, brown paper bags with the Roosters. If they don't make the 8, there has to be questions on Trent Robinson. I think if they miss the 8, Trent Robinson could be under the pump, but we'll see. They have to make the 8. Otherwise, it's an object failure. It really would be. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. They're definitely not playing as good as what we all thought they would. I'm going to give them a 4 out of 10 to start the year. They've been disappointing. I thought they'd finish first or second, but who knows? They might go on a run and finish top 4 for all we know, but their start of the year has been really poor. So not a good start to the year for the Chooks. Now let's get into the top 8 sides quickly. In 8th place, the Dolphins. What a surprise this has been. They are on 16 points, 7 wins, 6 losses. Dolphins, fins up, as they all say now. Now, Dolphins, probably one of the surprise packets. Everyone thought they would be nowhere near the top 8, and I even said that myself. I thought they'd be bottom 5, bottom 6, between 12th and 17th, but they've done a lot better than that. They're currently in 8th position, and it just goes to show the master man, Wayne Bennett, knows what he's doing. They lost their halfback, Sean O'Sullivan, but that young Katoa is doing a really good job. I'm very surprised with the Dolphins. A few people might not be surprised, but I don't know. They haven't even got a superstar player in their team, unless you want to consider the Hammer as a superstar player, but I don't know. They've been good. Again, a bit like Newcastle. I'm just waiting for the Dolphins to fall off a cliff, but that doesn't seem to be happening. So we'll see how they go. I'm not sure how they'll go at the back end of the year, but we'll see. They've been surprising as hell. I will give the Dolphins a 6 out of 10 to start the season. We all thought, they wouldn't be near the 8, so well done to them. Good on them. Hopefully they can finish it off, but 6 out of 10 for the Dolphins to start the season. Now, on to the Warriors. The Warriors are currently in 7th position. They have 7 wins, 6 losses, 16 competition points. How good are the Warriors going? Sean Johnson, career best form. Dylan Walker, playing great off the bench, was at Jersey 14. The signings of Barnett have been good. The signings of Moroney and Clore have been good. Nickel Klukstad's been outstanding. I love what Andrew Webster is doing at the Warriors. Now, I don't know if Andrew Webster will get coach of the season, but if they make the top 8, fuck me, man. It's got to be talked about. No one had the Warriors in the top 8 at the start of the season. No one thought they would be this good. I'm impressed with the Warriors. Up the wires. Good on them. Andrew Webster's done a great job. Sean Johnson's in career best form. They've had a lot of injuries too, obviously. They lost Tamari Martin, who's a very, very key role to them on how they play. Wade Egan, stand out as always. Probably the most underrated hooker in the comp, Wade Egan. The Warriors deserve credit. So, well done to them. Honestly, I think I had the Warriors about 10th or 11th at the start of the season, but they're in the 8. So good on the Warriors. Good on them. Andrew Webster's doing a great job. I'm really impressed with their forward pack. I thought they were a bit light on forwards at the start of the year, especially in the front row, but I just love the way they use the rotation. Start Fanil, Blake, and Bunty, and then they take off Bunty at the 20-minute mark. Harris goes to prop forward, and then they bring on Walker at lock, and the rotation and the combinations are working so good, and they're starting to get a feel of their experienced blokes back. So they're a handful to beat New Zealand. The Warriors have only lost 2 games in New Zealand this year, so they're a handful to beat over there, but they're also winning over here. That they've won in Sydney this year. They've won in Queensland, I think. Have they won in Queensland? Yeah, they beat the Cowboys up there. And they've won in Sydney. They beat the Sharks and the Bulldogs in Sydney. So well done to the Warriors. I hope they keep it up. I'll give the Warriors a solid 7.5 out of 10 to start the year. Great start to the year. Now on to Canberra. Another team that surprised the fuck out of me. Canberra. I think they were 1-4 at the start of the year. And then I think after that Panthers game where they got beat by 50, they just went on a run. Beat everyone. They're now in the top 8. They're in 6th position. 8 wins, 5 losses, 18 points. Canberra have been very good. Obviously, Jack Whiten's leaving, and I thought that would derail the club, but they've just all gotten together and they've all gone, you know what, we're going to win this year. And Canberra are going well. Now, I don't know if they can keep this up. I'm not 100% convinced by the Raiders, but for what they've done in the first half of the season, the Raiders have done very, very well. So good on them. We'll see how they go at the back end of the year. But Canberra, they're getting a 7 out of 10 for me, the way they've started the season. Their young outside backs are killing it. Guys like Tomoko, outstanding. Abel Hapawade doing a great job. Chris at fullback's been fine. Fogarty's really stood up. Hudson Young's been good all season. Horsburgh, Tarpanay, they're all doing their role. Emre Gula. Canberra have been good to start the year, so we'll see how they go at the back end, but I've been very impressed with the Raiders to start the year, so good on the Raiders. 7 out of 10. Melbourne Storm in 5th. They are 7 wins, 5 losses, 18 points. At the first quarter of the year, the first 7-8 rounds, I thought Melbourne were quite miserable, and then they sort of got a few wins together and looking pretty good, but they haven't. I mean, yes, they did beat the Broncos, but they haven't been that impressive for me, Melbourne. They have lost a few games that they should have won. They lost to the Gold Coast. They've lost to Canterbury. They were flogged by the Cowboys, who have been very hot and cold up until yesterday. They were smashed by South Sydney. They were beaten by Manly and Brookie. Look, they've had some really tough results, Melbourne. They've had some tough games, but they're in 5th. They're still in the top 5. They're going all right. I'm not convinced by Melbourne. I think if they get Pappenhausen back this season, I think they can definitely compete for the premiership. But until they get him back, it's hard to really picture Melbourne as a premiership contender. Nick Meaney's doing a really good job, but then, in my opinion, Melbourne they're no threat for the title at the moment. Obviously, it's the midway mark. They could easily turn that around, but they're still 7-5. They're still 7-5, and they're still doing okay. So look, I'm going to give Melbourne a 6 out of 10 to start the season, but they don't look like themselves. I'll tell you that much. Now, before I get to the top 4, Miss Lachlan's got a donation here. $10 super chat. Out of 10 for me with all the teams. Okay, he's got them all on the screen there. Warriors are 9. Okay, I like the list. Mr. Lachlan, thank you very much for the $10 super chat. So what he's rating is he's rating how every team's gone so far this year at a scale of 1 to 10. So, Mr. Lachlan, I do like it. Thank you for the $10 super chat. I appreciate it, bro. All right. Now, so let's move on to the top 4. 4th place, obviously, Cronulla. They are 7 wins, 5 losses, 18 points. Cronulla, I rate them. I think they are a team that can compete for the premiership. They could be in the grand final this year. They have potential. But fuck. There's been some games this season where I look at Cronulla and I just shake my head. The Broncos game on the weekend is one of them. The Dolphins game at Magic Round, I shake my head on them. The Warriors game this year where they led by like 20 and got run down. I've had some games this year, the Sharks, where they've been frustrating. So, look, I don't know. They're good to watch, but there's some games where they just seem to do my head in. And yes, for us, it's right in the live chat. They haven't beat anyone in the top 8. They haven't beat Penrith. They haven't beat Souths. They play Melbourne this weekend, which will be interesting. They haven't beaten Canberra. They lost to the Warriors. They lost to the Dolphins. So it's going to be intriguing to see how the Sharks do go against Melbourne this weekend. That's going to be a huge game. But look, the Sharks did finish 2nd last year. They're currently in 4th at the halfway mark. They've definitely been good enough. I will give Cronulla a 7 out of 10 to start the year. So 7 out of 10 for the Sharks. Now on to the Rabbitohs. Gee, they've been fucking good, South Sydney. They are currently in third, 18 points, 9 wins, 5 losses. Arguably the favourite for the premiership. South Sydney have been outstanding. They have had a couple of hiccups. They did lose to Melbourne back in round 5. They did lose a tight one to Penrith early in the year. They did have a couple of losses. Obviously, Origin period, they lost to Canberra. Lost a close one to the Roosters. And they were, Parramatta did touch them up a little bit before Origin won. So, they've had a few hiccups, but most of the season, South Sydney have been very clinical, very dominant on the back of guys like Latrell Mitchell, Campbell Graham, and Cody Walker. They've all stood up and they've all taken over. Souths have been great at the start of the season. I think they will definitely finish top 4. Very hard to beat, especially at a core stadium. They don't lose many games there. Very hard to beat. That they have beaten Penrith. They have beat Brisbane. They did flog Melbourne at Magic Round. South Sydney are a legitimate force. They are hard to stop. I think South Sydney are an easy 9 out of 10 to start the year. So we'll see how they go at the back end. Now on to the Broncos. Wow. The Broncos. How impressive have the Broncos been? I think they are probably the most impressive team of the year so far. Most surprising. Now, at the start of the year, dickhead me, didn't have the Broncos in the top 8. How stupid was I? Should have had them in there. I knew I should have. The Broncos have been outstanding. Kevin Walters apparently can't coach. The second. They had 10 wins, 4 losses, 20 points. Currently equal first, but in second because of the whole ladder, how the bye rounds and all this other shit. The Broncos have been very good, man. Reece Walsh, bye of the season. All their outside backs are doing a great job. Jesse Alvarez is coming in. Every time Jesse Alvarez comes in for an injury for an outside back, he does the job well. Reynolds is killing it. Ezra Mann's developing. The whole forward pack's standing up. Haas, Flagler, Carrigan, Ricky, Capewell, they're all playing good footy. Jensen's been outstanding. They've been very good, the Broncos. Tapau's been a good signing, good experience. I think they still have an issue at the dummy half position with Walters. I'm not convinced by Billy Walters at all, but overall, the Broncos have had a phenomenal start to the year. They've got to be careful, though. I did this shit last year, and then they fell off a cliff. So we'll see how they go. But Broncos, if they don't finish top 4 from here on out, I would be disappointed. They do have a fairly good draw to finish off the season. They do play teams that are below them. The Broncos still have to play the Bulldogs, the Titans again. They've got to play the Cowboys again, the Knights. They've got to play the Roosters, Dolphins. They're going to play the Warriors. And they've got to play Canberra. Broncos are playing a lot of teams below them again. So anything outside 4 for the Broncos from here on out would be pretty poor, considering how good they're going. They're 10-4. I do expect the Broncos to take a hit at some point, maybe have a few losses on the trot, but the way they're going, they will definitely be a top 4 team. And I think as well that, everyone's talking about, the Broncos, they're going to fall off again. Keep this in your fucking mind, everyone. I want everyone to listen to this. The Broncos still have 3 buys to come. In the second half of the season, they've got 3 buys. So that's going to really help them after Origin. So the Origin players will get a good rest, and there'll be no excuses for the Origin players because they get 3 buys at the back end. So it's going to be very intriguing to see how they go. I don't want to hear the excuse of a drop-off because they get 2 or 3 buys at the back end of the season, and everyone's getting a rest. So they can't drop off. If they drop off, then I'm questioning Kevin Walters. But Broncos, for me, 9 out of 10 to start the year. They've been very good. Now, on to the Panthers. Obviously, they are the back-to-back champions. They are looking for a three-peat. Currently in first, even though they have less wins, they have 8 wins, 4 losses. Doesn't make any sense, this whole fucking buys and ladder. Confusing as hell. Penrith are first. They are 8 wins, 4 losses, 20 points on the ladder. Penrith are not the same team, with all due respect. Yes, it's great that they're first, but they're not exactly convincing. They have had a few big wins over Manly. They have had a few nice wins against the Raiders. They have beaten South Sydney early in the season. They did beat the Broncos without Reynolds, which was not pretty, but they did get it done. They did flog the Roosters earlier in the season. I'm not entirely convinced with Penrith. I think they're a great team, and if they don't finish top 4, I'll be very surprised. But I think the problem with Penrith is they're so beatable. They're so beatable. They've got they've got a hooker that's not the greatest, and Mitch Kenny. No disrespect. He's not a top 5 hooker like the other ones in the competition. They really miss Kikau. Sorensen's doing a great job, but they haven't got a Kikau in their team. So, look, they are the team to beat. They are the benchmark team. And if you're going to win the comp, you're going to have to go through Penrith, I reckon. And, you've just got to try and get under their skin. You've got to try and play a different style of football. Now, in the wet, Penrith are terrible. They were beaten in the wet by Brisbane in round 1, beaten in the wet by the Tigers. They were beaten by St Helens in the World Club Challenge. They were beaten by South Sydney earlier this year. So, look, Penrith are very beatable. Don't get me wrong, but they are still the team to beat. So we'll see how they go. I will give Penrith a 7 out of 10 to start the year, but they're not as convincing as some people make them out to be. But they've had a good start to the year, so I'll give them that. Now, that's the mid-season review on all the teams done. It's time to reveal my updated ladder prediction. So, obviously, round 15 begins this weekend. I have gone through each team's draw, and I've done a little bit of research. I have done a ladder prediction, the ladder predictor that you do on Google online, on the NRL website. This has got nothing to do with the ladder predictor. I've just gone through the draw, had a look at who's got to play who, and I've come up with my own ladder. So let's see how this goes. This ladder could flop. Who the fuck knows? But also, if I don't have your team in the top 8 or in the top 4, do not get upset. We'll just see what happens after round 27. And just quickly, donation from Mr. Lachlan. Panthers' best performance was in round 11. Yeah, no, that's a fair point. The week after Magic Round, I'm trying to remember who that fucking played. Walking King with a donation says Canberra's at 1. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. I don't know who's going to finish number 1. But you're about to find out. You're about to find out. All right. Now let's get into my ladder prediction. Righto. Where's this fucking thing? Here we go. 17. Wooden Spoon. Dragons. Look, my dad's a Dragon supporter. I want him to do well. I want him to be in the top 8. I want him to do this and do that. But I'm sorry. They're just not all there. They don't even have a coach. The sponsors leaving them. They're a fucking mess. They can't win a close game for their life. I think the Dragons will end up with the Wooden Spoon. They will finish 17th. And it pains me to say it, but they will come last. 16th. Unpopular opinion, but the West Tigers are going to come second last. I'm not convinced. I don't think they'll win many more games the rest of the season. I think they'll do enough to avoid last. There's a game later on in the year. I think the Dragons play the Tigers at Wollongong. That game could decide the Wooden Spoon. Who the hell knows? But we'll see. Not convinced with the Tigers. They have been competitive, but I don't think they can get above the teams that I've got above them. So we'll see. Tigers to come 16th. 15th, Newcastle. Like I said before, they've done pretty well so far this year. They're currently 11th. I think they're going to drop off. I'm waiting for them to drop off. I'm not convinced with Newcastle. I reckon they'll come 15th. They're going to fall off a cliff soon. I'm just waiting for it to happen. So we'll see how they go. 14th, Gold Coast Titans. Gold Coast round out my bottom four because they're currently 5th last. The Gold Coast can't hold and lead. They haven't got quality. They haven't got enough big name players to win enough games to go up the ladder. They're going down the ladder. They were sitting in 8th at one point. Now they're down to fucking 13th. They keep losing games. Their confidence has to be shocked. I mean, how do you think the players would react after leading 12-0 and then getting run down the second half? Oh, here we go again. It's happening again. It's a confidence thing for the Titans. I reckon they're going to go right down backwards. Gold Coast to come 14th. Now, let's go to the next one. 13th. The Bulldogs. Like I said before, would not be surprised if the Bulldogs got up higher and pushed for the 8. But I look at the teams in front of them. I just don't know where the Bulldogs go. I don't know if they can overtake the teams above them. I think they can go up a little bit. I reckon they can get around that 13th, 12th mark, but they've had a lot of injuries, and now they're going to do a lot of catch-up and try and catch teams. It's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough for the Bulldogs to make the 8, but never say never. I think they're one of the teams that, they could be around that position come the end of the year, but we'll see. They do have a pretty tough draw as well. They have to play teams above them, which is going to be difficult for them to do. They have to play the Rabbitohs, Broncos, Panthers. They've got to play the teams above them. They've got to play the Dolphins. They've got to play teams that are a lot better than them, with all due respect. So Bulldogs will come 13th. 12th. Manly. This might be a bit of a controversial one, Manly. I just don't know. Manly are one of those teams where I really don't know what they're going to do. They could come 6th or they could come 12th. I have no idea what Manly are going to do. I'm so confused with Manly. Yes, Cherry Evans is a superstar and he has been their best player all season. But if Tom Trbojevic doesn't pick up his form, I don't know if they can make it. I don't know. I could be wrong. I just don't know. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But if they make the 8, I'll eat my words. But for now, I'm going to put them 12th. I'll put them in 12th position. 11th position. They were in last year's grand final. I'm going with Parramatta. I'm not convinced with Parramatta. I'm not convinced with Parramatta. Like, they are 12th on the ladder right now. I think they'll be fighting for the 8, but again, they've got a really tough draw, man. Like, they're going to play Brisbane, they're going to play Penrith, they're going to play all these teams above them. They have to play Melbourne in Melbourne. They're going to play the Roosters, which is going to be a 50-50 game. They play the Warriors again. Oh, for the first time, I should say, this year. The Eels, they're so inconsistent. I can't get a read on them. And, now that Dylan Brown's not going to be there, I don't know if they can win without a dominant, like with a 5'8". Like Dejan Assi may have to go to 5'8". And if Dylan Brown's out for the rest of the year, the workload and the pressure on Moses and Gutherson is going to be quite extraordinary. So we'll see how they go, but I'm not convinced by Parramatta. I reckon they'll come about 11th come season's end. 10th, again, they're having a good year, but I reckon they're going to fall off. Raiders. Might be controversial. I think Canberra are going to fall off. I am just waiting for it to happen. They are not that convincing. Yes, they did beat Brisbane. Yes, they did beat a South's team that had a lot of Origin players out, but I don't think Canberra can keep it up. I don't think the Raiders can keep it up. I don't think they can be as consistent at the back end of the season to get in the top 8. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they did get in the top 8, but I'm just not convinced. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I've got Canberra in 10th. I think they're going to fade away. 9th, the Dolphins, the new boys on the block, the new team. Dolphins. I want them to make it. Imagine that first season in the NRL making the top 8. I want to put them in there, but I can't. I don't know if the Dolphins can keep it up as well. They are currently 8th. They have had a few lucky wins. I mean, they've had a few unlucky wins as well, unlucky losses as well. But the Dolphins, I don't know. I don't know if that squad is going to be able to be consistent enough at the back end of the year. Now, they've done well with the first half of the year, but there's still a second half of the season to come. And I just don't know if the Dolphins have what it takes to do it all over again at the back end of the season. I would love to see them in the 8, but I don't know. I reckon they're going to fall to 9th, which is a tough spot to finish because we all know 9th always gets memes, but don't know. We'll see what happens. Now let's go to the top 8. Like I said before, I am putting my Cowboys in the top 8, and I legitimately believe we can make it. I had a look at our draw. I know we got some tough games. I know we're going to play Brisbane. We're going to play Cronulla again. We're going to play Souths and Penrith. We're going to play them all. But the difference is, with the way the Cowboys play with their full-strength team, they can beat anyone on their day. Now, if we were to play any of the top 4 tomorrow, I believe we would lose. If we played Penrith, Brisbane, South, Cronulla all tomorrow, we'd probably lose. But I think the Origin period has definitely helped some of the guys that were out of form. Talangi is a good example. He was out of form. Played Origin, all of a sudden he's back to his best. Guys like Val Holmes, incredible form. Dearden, guys like Nanai coming back. I think the Cowboys are a good chance of making the top 8. So I reckon we'll come 8th. I think we can win enough games to get there. Right, only one game from the 8 right now. So we'll see how we go. But got to fix up that for and against as well, because at the moment it's minus 65, and we got to get some big wins against some of the lower tier teams. But we'll see how we go. But Cowboys to make the 8, I think it is a realistic possibility. 7th. I'm not confident in this at all, but the Roosters. The Roosters. They have to. They just simply have to make it. I don't know what the excuses would be if they don't make it, but they just have to get there. I don't know how they do it, but they have to do it. They've got Tedesco. They've got classy players. We mentioned their forward pack before on how much quality it is. I don't know. They just have to get there, the Roosters. They have to somehow manage to sneak into that top 8. And I think they have enough quality to get there. So I'm only putting them there on trust because of what the team they have. But fuck, man, if I don't make it, Jesus Christ, there'll be a lot of questions in the off season. Roosters have finished 7th. 6. I'm going with the Warriors. I'm going with the Wars. The New Zealand fucking Warriors. They have been so good to watch. And I hope the Warriors do get into that top 6. Imagine an elimination final in New Zealand. It would be one of the greatest things for the whole season. Imagine that. I'm not sure what day you'd play it. Maybe on the Sunday would be the best day to have it. Sunday, 4 o'clock our time, 6 o'clock New Zealand time. Warriors in an elimination final in New Zealand would be outstanding. They'd be very hard to beat over there in New Zealand, I tell you. I wouldn't want to play them over there. I'd be fucking terrified. But the Warriors, I think they can get into that top 6. I reckon they'll come 6. They've got a pretty good draw. They're an absolute nightmare to beat in New Zealand. So I've got the Warriors finishing in 6th position. 5th, I'm going with Melbourne. I'm going to go with Melbourne. I'm not sold on the Storm. I really am. I'm really not sold on them. I think there's a real possibility that Melbourne could even drop lower than 5th. They finished 5th last year, I think, and they got knocked out by Kevin in week 1. But, you look at Melbourne, Munster, Grant, Hughes. They should get there. I think they'll end up in 5th. I don't think they'll be top 4. But, they could finish as low as 8th, like I said at the start of the season. But I think they'll win enough games to manage to get the 5th. I think they have a couple of games that they should win. I think they play the Gold Coast and Melbourne later in the year. They play Newcastle. I think they play Canberra, who they could beat. I think they play Parramatta in Melbourne. So, they've got some games where they should win enough to get in that top 6. So I've got Melbourne in 5th, but we'll see how they go. Now, to round out the top 4. 4th, Cronulla. They might not be as convincing as everyone makes them out to be, but I think with the team they have, with the experience they have, they should be top 4. I'm going to put Cronulla in 4th. I think, yes, they have lost a few games this year in the Shire that they probably should win, but I think they'll do enough at the back end of the season. They do have a fairly good draw as well. They play some teams that they should beat. So, look, I think Cronulla will do enough to finish in 4th. So, but Sharks have finished 4th. We'll see how they go. They should be around that top 4. 3rd, we're going with Penrith, the back-to-back champions. Penrith. Now, Origin's going to hurt them. Obviously, they've got the Roosters this weekend, where they've got no Cleary. They've got the Cowboys the week after in Townsville, where they'll have all their Origin players out, and Cleary's not back to about round 20, round 21. So I'm intrigued to see how Penrith go without him. I reckon they can still win games without Cleary, but I don't know. I think the teams that I'm about to put in front of them are going to win more games at the back end of the season. So I think Penrith will end up in 3rd, and it'll be very intriguing to see how they go the back end of the season. 2nd, we're going to go with the Broncos. I know a lot of people want them to fall off a cliff, and yes, I do not like the Broncos one bit. I am a Cowboys fan, and I do not like Brisbane one bit, but I can't deny how good they're going. They're playing really well at the moment. They're 10-4. They have a fairly favourable draw coming up as well. They are playing really well. They have a good draw to end the season. They should finish top 4 somewhere. We'll see how they go. But for me, Broncos, they'll finish 2nd. They'll get 2 finals at Suncorp Stadium. And, they'll be hard to beat at Suncorp as well. I wouldn't want to play them up there at Suncorp. Very hard to beat. But Broncos, for me, they'll end up in 2nd position. And first, we're going with South Sydney. I think South Sydney will finish as minor premiers. They are a very good bloody side. Yes, I know they might be a little bit affected by Origin as well coming up. I think they play the Bulldogs in a couple of weeks going into game 3 of Origin, which is a winnable game. But they've got some pretty good depth for their South Sydney. I think South Sydney will finish first. I think they've got enough quality to finish first. And if you have a look at South Sydney's run home, I think Brisbane's the only team they've got to play that's in front of them. They're going to play Cronulla in Perth, which will be interesting. But they've already beaten Melbourne. They've already beaten a few of the top sides. They've already beaten Penrith as well. So I think South will end up first. I really do. I think South Sydney will finish as minor premiers, and they don't lose many games at a Core Stadium. They're very hard to beat down there. We play down there in a few weeks, and I'm glad I'm not going because I'm terrified to play Souths. But I think South Sydney will finish first. So that's my ladder. So I'll just go through the top 8 because that's all that matters. I got Souths, second Brisbane, third Penrith, fourth Cronulla, fifth we've got Melbourne, sixth we've got the Warriors, seventh the Roosters, and we've got eighth we've got the Cowboys. Now, based off my ladder prediction, this is how the final series will end up. So I'll just go to it. So my final system, this is how I think, this is how the finals will go. Right, here we go. So you get week 1 of the finals, you get 1 versus 4, South versus Cronulla at a Core Stadium, 2 versus 3, Broncos and Panthers at Suncorp, 5 versus 8, which would be Storm versus Cowboys in Melbourne at Amy Park, and you'd get Warriors and Roosters on a Saturday in New Zealand at Mass Park Stadium. So how I would do the finals fixture, I would go Friday night, you'd have Broncos and Panthers, 2 versus 3. Saturday afternoon, I would go with I'd go with the Warriors Roosters elimination final game. And then on Saturday night, I would have South Sydney versus Penrith from a Core Stadium. And on the Sunday arvo, I'd have the Storm versus Cowboys in Melbourne. So here we go. My finals predictions. First against fourth, I reckon South Sydney would defeat Cronulla. So South Sydney advance straight to the prelim final where Cronulla plays sudden death at Allianz because they can't play at Cronulla in week 2 of the finals because they're at the big stadiums. So Souths go straight to the prelim. Sharks are off to week 2. Broncos versus Panthers. Broncos versus Panthers. I would go with the Broncos in that one. I think Broncos could beat Penrith. Broncos to win that one. Broncos straight through to a prelim. Penrith plays sudden death. Elimination finals. Storm versus Cowboys. Cowboys to beat the Storm in the elimination final. Cowboys through to week 2. Melbourne, see you later. Warriors and Roosters in New Zealand. I'm going to go with the Warriors. I think the Warriors can win. So Warriors to advance straight to week 2 with the Cowboys. Now, we go to week 2. Now, week 2 would be Sharks versus Cowboys at Allianz and Panthers versus Warriors at ANZ. Now, I'm a Cowboys fan, but I think we lose. We lose to the Sharks. We're out week 2. I'm depressed and I'm upset, but that's just how it is. And then Panthers versus Warriors from ANZ Stadium. I would lean towards the Panthers in that one. I think they would knock off the Warriors. So we get to a prelim final, and we've got the top 4 teams against each other. We've got the Rabbitohs versus the Panthers from ANZ Stadium, and we've got the Broncos versus the Sharks from Suncorp Stadium. And I believe that the Rabbitohs would defeat the Panthers. Bye-bye, Penrith. Their title reign's over. South Sydney defeat Penrith. Souths are through to the grand final. Broncos and Sharks at Suncorp would be a blockbuster sellout. I wouldn't want to play the Broncos after a week off, especially in Brisbane. So I think Brisbane would defeat Cronulla. And plus, the Sharks' record at Suncorp is horrible. So I'd go the Broncos. And we get a grand final as everyone can predict, South Sydney versus the Broncos. Grand final winner. South Sydney win the premiership. I think South will win the whole thing, guys. I'm telling you. From here on out, I think South Sydney will win the whole flipping thing. I just don't see anyone beating them. I really don't. I think South Sydney are going to win the premiership. I like them. I really do. I think Souths can go all the way. I know it might be a bit boring because I think they are the favourites to win the comp right now, but I think South Sydney win the premiership from where the season's currently at and how every team's going. I think South Sydney will win the whole fucking thing. So Souths are my tip to win the premiership. You come down to the grand final. Maybe. If the Broncos are in it, I'm probably going to be forced to go down there because of my brother. But who knows? I reckon South Sydney will win the premiership. And good luck to them. Good luck to them. Souths haven't made the grand final since 2021 and they were beaten. And I think Souths, I really think it's their season. I really do. So something about Souths, I think it's their year. So, that's my grand final prediction. And from here on out, the mid-season updated ladder prediction. You guys can let me know in the live chat and in the comment section below who wins it from here on out. But, fellas, that's going to wrap up the NRL 2023 mid-season review. If you guys enjoyed the mid-season review, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for watching. I am now buggered. I will be live tomorrow for the NRL Round 15 preview, which is going to be another fantastic weekend of footy. But anyway, guys, until tomorrow, have a fantastic night. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for the Round 15 preview. Anyway, guys, until next time, take care. My grand final prediction is the Broncos, Rabbitohs to win the comp.